It's not about what you have. It's about who you have. It's not about where you live. It's about how you live. And it's not about what you do. It's about why you do it. Welcome to the Momenticize podcast. Today, I have got a crazy story for you guys. A gentleman who went from rehab to now successful real estate investor in 7 years. He has a portfolio net worth of over $500,000, and it's going to be a phenomenal day getting to pick his brain. Without further ado, please welcome Donnie Eggers to the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
What's up, man? How you doing?
Doing great. Yeah, it's been a great day. Weather's coming out, and people are back in the market, hitting it strong.
Boom, baby. We love that. For those of the people who don't know you, give us just an origin story of Donnie Eggers.
Cool. Yeah. Well, I was born in the East Bay area, moved down to Carmel when I was about 10 and grew up in Carmel, kind of got pushed out of that market and was like fumbling around college and like smoking a lot of pot and drinking a bunch and like was listless. So I moved up to just north of Seattle, got in the restaurants there and then moved back down to Bend, traded 300 days of rain for 300 days of sun and started bartending here in Bend and have been here ever since.
How old were you when you started bartending here in Bend?
21.
21.
Yeah.
Okay. So 20. You moved to Bend at 21, bartending along, and then talk to us a little bit about how you got into real estate, how that all unfolded.
Yeah. So I actually bartended up at Tetherow, which is actually where we're recording. Yeah. Bartended at Tetherow. Secret
spot at Tetherow. Nobody knows where it is.
Yeah, underground. And so we bartending at Tetherow, had a lot of great clients, met a lot of great people. And I never really thought about those relationships and how they would shape me, but they really have. And a lot of people are like, oh, you should get into real estate. And as a bartender, you know, you're somewhat charismatic and like dealing with a lot of people, but you kind of pass it off like, no, I'm fine where I'm at, you know, closed-minded and whatnot. And then I had a buddy, Jim, who passed away a couple of years ago, but Jim was known as the mayor. You know, he was the man. Yeah. And he kind of guided me. He said, I'll go back even more deeper into the story. He sold me a piece of land. He kept heckling me. He's like, buy this land for me, buy this land for me down in Arizona. I'm like, there's no way. Yeah. And he gave me an offer I couldn't refuse. And he said, Donnie, if you buy this land sight unseen, you go down and visit within a year, you don't like it, I'll refund every penny of your money back to you and your closing costs and everything like that. Like, just buy the land. Yeah. I said, okay, fine. I wanted to own something, you know, like it was a feeling of being like, I don't know, for lack of a better term, a man in my place and owning a piece of land. And so we went down to Arizona with Jim, checked it out, had such a great time. And before I left Arizona, we had breakfast with Jim before we caught our flight. He pulled out a sheet of yellow paper. When he sat at the bar, he always had this yellow paper and he would just write his to-do list, wake up every day at 5 and get it done. Unless if I got him too drunk, it might be 5:15. And he pulled out this yellow paper when we were having breakfast and he said, Donnie, I don't care if you have, I don't care what you think about what I have to say, but I'm going to say it to you anyways. And I don't care if you're offended, but this is what you have to do. You need to get into real estate. And this is why. And basically what he shaped it was that he was in the restaurant industry for so long. He owned 2 restaurants, a really nice steakhouse down in Arizona, but he felt like he was in prison. He couldn't make money unless he was there. And he said, this is your opportunity for freedom. You need to be able to expand your finances and expand your time, which is the ultimate currency, right? And you're going to be able to do that through real estate. And then on the plane flight home, I bought my real estate classes.
Boom.
Like that.
Boom. Just like that. So he planted the seed for you, right? I think a lot of times, especially young people, sometimes we're stuck in our mind, we're stuck in our mindset. And then we, as long as we're available and listening, a mentor will come by, just like this gentleman, Jim Murray, came by for you, right? And he planted this seed that real estate was really something that you needed to do. And you needed to go and figure out how to make that happen. So you decided on the plane ride home, you're going to buy your first piece of real estate, right? If I got it?
Yep.
Okay. You went and saw it. Jim Murray's now your mentor. You close on the land and simultaneously you say, hey, I'm going to get my real estate license. Is that correct?
Yep.
Where are you at as far as like, are you still drinking at this point?
Still drinking at this point.
So you're still drinking at this point, but now you're going to pivot out of being a bartender and into a real estate side of things.
Exactly.
Was that a scary decision or what did that feel like?
Yeah. It was a pretty scary decision. Actually, can we take a step back? I'm so sorry.
Yeah, step back.
I wasn't drinking at this point.
You quit drinking already.
I had quit drinking. Yeah. I'd quit drinking at this point, and I was fumbling around looking for what to do.
Yeah.
Sorry. So I was about 6 months sober at this time, and that the first part about the sobriety was kind kind of finding out what I was going to do. So
what made you get sober? Like, what was the tipping point in general?
Dude,
What happened? Talk to me about the buildup. You're bartending, you're in the lifestyle. Like, what actually made you decide, like, hey, stop, it's enough? Or how did you even figure out you had a problem?
Yeah. So like from 21 to like 26, it was fun. It was badass. Wake up in the morning. I was so energetic that like, the quality time I had the night before kind of carried on into the next day.
Yeah.
And the next 2 years from like 26 to 28, that flipped. It was just like felt pretty horrible. And I was drinking all the time. I, hair of the dog.
Yeah.
So like if I felt sick when I woke up, which was more often than not, I'd have a beer in the shower, before going to work. And it was just kind of like this roller coaster. And I think it's the people who manage their alcohol really well take longer to see it. Like when people tend to have this catastrophic alcoholism, they tend to like crash and burn really hard. They change more quickly than the people who are like functioning alcoholics. They think that because their life's going okay, that things are progressing, that they have this momentum still going forward, that they don't have a problem. But then like things start to eke in, maybe a DUI here, or they miss an appointment here, or this or that. And then like after you quit drinking, you look back and be like, oh yeah, that was not going well. So I was kind of like the latter group, I can function and everything like that, but I was drinking all day, having some health problems, having mindset problems, emotional problems, things like that. Lots of spiritual problems, I think. And I think it was more of an alignment issue of who I saw myself as versus who I really am, and finding my more nobler truth.
So was that the breaking point for you, or what was the breaking point?
Yeah. The breaking point ended up going down to rehab. Had to,
what made you go to rehab? Like, I'm just curious. I know I'm just sticking on it.
It's a series of benders. I used to quit drinking like twice a year, just prove to myself I could do it. Like 2 months out of the year, in separate 2 months, I would quit drinking for a month at a time, and then I couldn't do that. And then I was having panic attacks, breaking out in hives all over my body, and just having like these really bad emotional issues. And to be completely blunt, like suicidal issues and things like that were really affecting my mind, and I had some eye-opening nights, and decided to change.
Enough was enough. Enough was enough. So you just said, I'm done with this. This is not the path I want to go. Boom, you go to rehab.
Yeah. And there's a really interesting story about that, is that I researched rehab programs, and I found one that would pay for me to go, like through medical insurance or whatnot. I could be able to go for free. And I took that opportunity. They say, you buy your plane flight, you come for free. I went to my employer at the time, and I was bartending, and I said, if I can give a shout out, and I was actually your parents. I said, you know what? I need to quit drinking, and this is an issue. And they said, no questions asked. I said, don't worry. You'll have a job when you get back. You're fine. Go take care of yourself. And that was really powerful. And I did. So I went down to a 30-day inpatient program down in Palm Springs. And I thought it'd be like, oh, I'm just going to dry out and quit drinking and like sit by the pool and this and that. And I was like, no way, man. I called it drug jail. It was crazy. The people that were in there with me was pretty nuts. And there was like rarely, it wasn't pool time and chilling. It was like hard work, lots of mental practices and spiritual practices and meditating and classes and things like that. So when I was in there, I did hate it. I hated it so much. And I promised myself I'd never be back in that situation. And I haven't.
Well, I commend you for taking that step, right? It takes a real, what I see in a real man is somebody who's willing to be vulnerable and look at themselves and say, hey, I'm not where I want to be, and now I'm going to actually make a change, right? It's so easy to get caught in that pattern over and over and over, or play that victim mindset. So many times I hear people, they complain about something, but they're not going to do anything about it. And to me, I'm like, what's the point of complaining, right? When things aren't going your way, or if you're going to complain about it, if you do not change it, that's a big problem. So I commend you for taking that big leap of faith, being vulnerable, being honest with yourself, and then going to fix it. To loop that back to real estate. So you go, you get sober, you're working through, like you said, you hated it, but you're working through all these things, both on the actual addiction side, but then the mental side, the spiritual side, etc. And now you loop back and you had this mentor, Jim Murray, who told you got to buy real estate. So as you're getting clean, you're starting to think about, hey, what's maybe the next thing I can do? And that's when you jump into saying, I'm going to get my license. Is that how that unfolded? Or
yeah, essentially. Prior to that, I tried 2 other vocations. I tried tiling, and I tried being a butcher. And it just
because you've just been bartending, right? That's what
I've just been bartending. I knew nothing else, right? Yeah. And so, I valeted maybe a little as a kid, but I realized that bartending was good enough money that butching and tiling wasn't really it. I was not making a lot of money. And I didn't really see coming out of that. A, I wasn't good at it. And B, I wasn't making as much money as bartending. And then that's when I switched into real estate. That was the mind opening, like, God, give me a sign. And that was my sign, was Jim Murray coming forward and being like, you need to get into real estate. And this is why I'm like, all right, I'm going to take this leap of faith.
Yeah, you listened to that omen, you took the leap of faith, and you just went for it. What was that like? Was it scary? I mean, what was that like, taking that leap of faith?
I mean, there was a fear factor in it. Going to a commission base, and really, I didn't have any savings. I remember I got a speeding ticket. It was a $500 speeding ticket. We went on this vacation, and the speeding ticket took my bank account down to zero. And I remember that point. And my girlfriend at the time, she was like, "Oh, I'm willing to pay for half." And I told myself, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to pay for all of this, and I will never be at this point again. And the fear was there, but the excitement overcame the fear. There was just so much passion and energy of the unknown and what the potentiality of everything could be overcasted that fear. I wasn't very afraid.
What was it like going through the process of getting your real estate license and dealing with all that?
So I got back into bartending after I tried tiling and butching. I got back into bartending and I took 2 jobs. At that point, I was saving up for a couple of things, but paid for the real estate classes, and I got 2 bartending jobs. So I was bartending in the mornings at the Washington in Northwest Crossing, and in the evening at 5 Fusion. And in the morning, I'd set up, I'd put on my podcast, I'd listen to Bigger Pockets podcast, and I would listen to my classes just through my headphones. And when I'm breaking down at night and closing, there's no customers around, headphones. I was just so focused and so driven. And I completed my classes in about 2 months, which is 150 hours, and passed my tests. And I think the stats are like only 46% pass on their first time. There was no question. It was just like really, really decent scores. And I got my license. About a month prior to getting my license, I was at an event, and I talked with someone from one of the largest private home builders in the Northwest, and talked to them. They're like, well, when you get your real estate license, come talk to me. We want to be able to interview you to be able to be a sales agent for new construction. I talked to Jim. He said, get into new construction. You'll make less commission per home, but you're going to have a steady business, and it's going to be a lot easier going forward. And so I did that. And there was a 2-month gap between when I got my license and when they were going to hire me. The long story medium is that they didn't hire me right after that 2 months when they said they would. And then they kind of ghosted me for another 4 months. So I had quit my jobs, started in real estate, expecting this job to open up, and it just didn't for over 6 months. And I was persistent. I texted, I called, I texted, I called. I got depressed. I got down. I texted, I called. I'm like, I'm not going to take no for an answer. I texted the president of the company. I'm like, hey, what's going on? And then about 2 months after that, starting January 7th, from May to January 7th, I finally got that job to open up and working with the new home builder. And in that time, I sold 1 home. It was like $200,000. And I got my commission like January 8th, like right after I started that job. So I was like bartending 2 jobs. I was the GM for a company at the amphitheater, selling their alcohol there and for all the concerts and everything like that. Like I was grinding, but not making any money in real estate. None whatsoever.
Yeah. I would just want to unpack that really quickly for the listeners, because there's something really powerful in Donnie's story there. I mean, first, I would just want to tee it up. Before you started that journey, did you know anything about real estate?
Nothing.
Exactly. Yeah. So the point is, Donnie, he didn't know anything about real estate. What he could feel, though, he had a mentor that he trusted, a guy that he trusted in, and he was listening to his gut, right, to follow these moves, these things that were happening. So he followed his gut. He didn't know anything about real estate, but he took all of his time and his focus and attention into diving in the growth mindset of learning Bigger Pockets, podcasts, reading books, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Every waking hour that he had without any excuses. Most people, they might go in, they set up for the bar, they listen to music, or they're just zoned out. Honestly, they're probably just zoned out, right? Going through the routine. You were just saying, hey, I'm going to take this time and I'm going to learn. Then I'm going to continue. By the way, somebody told me they're going to give me an offer once I get my license. And it took them 8 months to actually follow through on that, right? Was it 8 months?
Yeah,
8 months. You didn't, most people would say, oh, maybe this isn't meant for me. Maybe I'm going to give up. They would fold or pivot or turn or say, it's not meant to be. But you just stayed persistent. You said, I'm not going to take no for an answer. And you just kept getting after it. 8 months, no pay, right? Grinding it out. Most people aren't willing to do that, but you did it.
Yeah.
So now I just wanted to unpack that for people, right? Like it is possible if you're willing to put the work in. Most of the time people think that You have to be lucky. Like me, I'm lucky. I have a built-in infrastructure of people, and I'm very blessed for the family I was born into, right? We can't change that. But Donnie, like, you had no connections, no knowledge, no anything, but you can do it. That's the point. Like, that's why I brought Donnie on here. Like, you can do it. He is in the process of doing it, and it compounds. Like, I guarantee you in a year we'll have him on and he'll be a multimillionaire. That's just how it works. It's just how it works because he's stuck with it for 7 years. So now we're in January. You get on with this new home builder. You sell your first house. You get your first commission check. What did that feel like?
The commission check felt really good, but also, to be completely honest, I was like, damn, this brokerage is taking so much out of this commission. I calculated it all in my head. I'm like, oh, I should be getting this amount of money. And it was almost half of what I was, 2/3, less than 2/3 of what I was expecting. So it kind of felt a little weird. Kind
of like Uncle Sam and your taxes, man.
Exactly. I do want to rewind and just go back to what you were saying about, you having connections and where you got started and everything like that. I think that there's like a distinct difference from, there's a good story about two alcoholics. A father was an alcoholic. He had two twin sons. One son became an alcoholic, one son didn't. And when the two sons are asked, why, one became successful and one became an alcoholic. The alcoholic said, well, because my dad was an alcoholic. And the successful one said, well, because my dad was an alcoholic. And it's where your mindset is and where you, what lens you take it in. So someone could be given, or someone could be born into something spectacular and do absolutely nothing with it. And we see that every day in our lives. So I really want to commend you for all the things that you've really, like, watching you over the past year. I'm going to put a plug in for you. Last January, you started an Instagram, 0 followers. And now what are you, like 10,000 in like 15 months, just over a year? And that's not luck. And that's not from, being attractive or being charismatic or being skilled. It's from daily consistent action. And that's what you do. You post on Sundays, you wake up and you get it done anyway. And I just want to say that taking what you're given, whether you're given very little or given a lot, taking what you're given and transforming it into something good and serving other people is really what it's all about. So I just want to commend you for that.
I appreciate the kind words on that a lot. I really appreciate those kind words. So you get your commission checks. Thank you. You get your commission checks. You're like, well, you're happy, but you're like, oh, it's not what I thought. They kind of Uncle Sam'd you in their own version. Then talk us through, now you got your commission check, you've got this job. Talk us through that period of time.
That was so crazy, dude. Yeah. So how that company kind of works, it's the largest private brokerage in the United States for new home sales. And so they do a 2-month training where you get paid like a little bit amount of money. I think the amount was like $2,000 a month. And for cost of living, for a given perspective, I was probably spending about $3,500 a month at the time. So I sold some instruments. I sold a car. I kind of...
You sold... See, exactly. Say that again. So what did you do to get by? You sold your stuff.
I sold my stuff. I got a cheaper... I rented a room in a house instead of living, in a nicer house. I sold some instruments that, I wasn't really playing anymore. And I'd saved up when I was young for them, but they weren't serving me. I sold, I had 2 cars at a time, a little beater Bronco and a Subaru. I sold one of those. And lots of pasta, lots of rice and beans and, studying. That's kind of what it is. And then that whole year was so crazy. And this is going into the unknown. So the 2 months you get
Give us a date real quick. January what?
January 7th is when I started.
What year?
2018.
Okay.
And then you go 2 months and you make a little bit of pay to kind of get by, and then you go no pay. You just go off your commissions. Now you can draw against future commissions. So I can draw up to $3,000 a month now, which is still lower than what what I was paying a month for living standards. Excuse me. And so it was just a little bit below for what I was paying for living standards, but you can draw against future commissions. Well, a normal house that takes to build is 4 to 6 months from this builder. And so if a house is already built, you can get a commission right away. That's great. But if a house isn't, you're waiting about 4 to 6 months, no problem. You can draw against future commissions, but they won't let you draw beyond 6 months. So once you have 6 months of draw, you can't draw anymore. So
draw means you're just borrowing, but you are paying back.
I do have to pay it back once I make that commission. But while they're building the house, it's nice to get by. Fast forward to December 14th, I haven't made a commission. What had happened was the builder messed up with a land deal that they had with the municipality. And so they had built 19 homes I had under contract, and they had built all these 19 homes and they couldn't get certificate of occupancy because they didn't follow up with the agreement they had with the city to build multifamily units. And until they can get the C of O on those multifamily, we couldn't get C of O on the houses. So not only did I have these 19 customers that I had under contract, I had to go to these 19 customers and be like, oh, you remember when we said we'd give you your house in September, August? We don't know when we can give you your house. It's going to be soon, hopefully.
Yeah. So just so listeners know, what's C of O?
A certificate of occupancy. So basically, I've done everything that I need to for the house. The city comes by and certifies that it's habitable and everything's okay. And then they give me the C of O after I pay all the taxes on that property, or the fees, the SDC fees. And once I pay all those, they give me the C of O. There you go. Now you can have somebody live in the home. Now you can sell the home.
Yeah.
You can't basically move into the home without
it.
And
so the problem you had was you had 19 homes sold, completed, done. But because most of them, let's say very close to completion, done. But because of a technical issue within their this developer's overall approval, they weren't actually going to give you that certificate of occupancy, meaning you can't actually close or sell on that home that's done until that multifamily component was done. So
which means I don't get paid.
You don't get paid a lick. So you're counting on 19 closings. They're not happening. It's December 14th. And what do you do?
A lot of patience, a lot of persistence, but there was a lot of pain, like I don't want to chalk it up that it didn't suck.
Yeah.
I complained to people that I knew.
Yeah.
I say complained. I did. I try not to complain. I
vented. You vented. Yeah.
Yeah. I vented.
Yeah.
I vented to my boss. I'm like, hey, this is kind of messed up. I'm feeling these emotions. Do I quit? Like, what's going on? And my boss was such a great mentor, man. Like, he is a leader of leaders. I love him.
Oh.
And so,
you would ask him, do I quit? You wanted to quit in your head.
I'm like, what am I doing? Like, I need to get paid. Like, this is painful. It had been now, 12 months plus another 8 months, 20 months of like, really trying to take the
one
stab
commission.
at it. Yeah, for a commission, a commission of less than $2,000.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Being real. And so, he took me out to dinner and I literally cried in the restaurant. I'm like, what am I doing? And so we revisited some of those things. He moved me into another market while those homes were waiting to close. I made 2 commissions prior to that December. And then that December 14th, the city allowed us to get certificate of occupancy. We closed on the first 7 homes the first week, and we closed on the next 7 homes the next week. And I made basically my year's worth of commissions from December 14th to December 31st. And it was just like such a relief. Yeah. And that's my origin story into real estate. It was hard. It sucked. And if you're a patient and persistent man, right? So like took a lot of patience, took a lot of persistence, but I tell you what, I outperformed a lot of my peers in that industry from how much knowledge and training that I never gave up on.
Yeah.
And on a weekly basis was just putting in as much training, more training than anybody else on my team, and a lot more training than you'd see somebody in the general real estate industry.
Yeah. I remember watching you grow through that period and being able to touch bases with you throughout that whole process at different times. Right. And I think even from the outside looking in, I guarantee you had people that loved you very much that probably you were like, what is Donnie doing? Like, they probably would have been on the boat of, hey, if you would have went to them rather than that your boss, great mentor, said, hey, should I quit? They probably would have been like, yeah, I think it's a good idea to quit. You should do something else, right? But you stayed persistent. And one thing that I know is to master any skill, you have to put in the hours, right? You have to put in, they say 10,000 hours of quality work to master a skill. And you essentially had to fast track that for yourself, right? And I remember that. I remember watching you, and you were putting in 100-hour weeks, like without an exaggeration, straight up. That's what you're doing without getting paid.
Yeah.
Without getting paid, right? So it's an unbelievable story that you were able to push through. Now you get all your commission. It's a beautiful, beautiful story. And I'm so proud of you for doing that. You push through. Now, end of 2018, after not getting paid for a whole year, you make all your commissions in the month of December. And then what? Did that light a fire for you, or talk me through what's the mentality after that?
The mentality after that was, let's see, what was the mentality after that?
You're like, I got no money. Now you got a decent chunk.
Yeah. Protecting that chunk.
Yeah.
I didn't change my habits. I tried, I always hear about income creep.
What was the chunk? Like from 0 to what, if you're comfortable sharing?
About $74,000.
Yeah.
A lot of that had to be paid back.
Yeah.
And if you're fine with real numbers, I'd give you real numbers.
Yeah,
Oh yeah, cool. So for the first year, it was $74,000. And then the following 2 years were the best years financially for me out of like net income.
Yeah.
Right. And so keeping that 74,000. And then my next goal was buying my first house.
Yeah.
And that was practice what you preach. I believe that real estate is the best asset class that has outperformed almost any other asset class throughout the years. Like unless you get in early on a ground floor in stocks, which I'm not really great at, I know what I can trust. And I like the consistency of real estate, even though it is more long-term and it's less liquid than any other asset, not any other asset, excuse me, but less liquid than most assets. I think that it is my favorite asset class. And so my main goal was getting more into real estate investing.
Yeah. So you protect the money that you just made year one, and then boom, year two, 2019, it's set some goals for commission based, but also let me get my first house, right?
Yep.
How did that unfold?
Saved up my money. COVID happened in 2020. And so there was no houses to purchase.
So commissions are ringing in 2019. You're stacking cash now.
Yeah. Well, 2019 is when 2019 is the year of my first year with that company.
Okay.
And then 2020 was my first like full year of actually making consistent
so you're making,
commissions.
now you're cashing checks.
Yeah. And so I think the first year I was just $252,000.
Okay.
And then the third year that I was with that company was 283. The initial ceiling when I got hired with that company was about 300,000.
Yeah.
And I was nearing basically that ceiling, which was awesome.
Good job.
And not to mention that with that income, with, came great responsibility. My communities had the highest customer satisfaction community out of any other community in history with that company.
Boom.
Other than their nonprofit communities.
Yeah.
Which was huge. So it's not like I just took the money and run. I felt like I had a longevity with this company, and I wanted to be president.
Yeah.
I was like, I bled blue.
Yeah,
right,
that was
company.
it. Yeah, that was it.
So the next year, coming up to buying a house, there wasn't a lot of houses available. I think I did 5 different hard credit pulls that year trying to get a house, because when you switch from a W-2 to a 1099, you have to have 2 years of income. But it's not just like 2 years of income, but you have to have 2 years of high income. So if your first year you only made 70,000, they're going to take that 2 years and divide it by 2. And so it looks like I made 35,000 if they were divided by 2. So I had to wait a full another year of saturation in order for me to be able to purchase a house.
To qualify.
Yeah. Just to get a loan.
Yeah.
And COVID hit, prices went insane. And I locked in a house with that builder. And I bought that house in Redmond at $376,000. They included $9,000 in closing costs, and it was a 5-bedroom house. And so
wasn't it a 4-bedroom that you turned into?
Excuse me. Yeah, it was a 4-bedroom, and I turned it into a 5-bedroom.
Yeah.
And so part of my pros and cons about, I feel like, who I am as a person, I'm a very conservative investor, I feel like, in a lot of ways, which bites me sometimes, but sometimes really benefits me. So in this way, I was doing a house hack. And I literally listened to 3 years of podcasts.
What's a house hack for people who don't know?
House hack is basically renting by the room, or, buying a multifamily, having someone else rent the other side, and just driving down your mortgage with renters. Yeah. And so I did a house hack. I got 3 roommates. I had the primary bedroom and the office, because I built that that 5th bedroom. And I had 3 total bathrooms. So no more than 1 bathroom was shared by more than 2 people. And so I didn't pay a mortgage at that time, which was great.
Yeah.
And
you were living for free. And on that, why I even touched on the 4-bedroom, 5-bedroom thing, for anyone who's trying to get started, one thing, like real estate, yes, it's a numbers game, but it's also this weird artistic game where you need to see what others can't see. So that was a 4-bedroom house that Donnie planned for. He knew that he was going to house hack, right? He knew his strategy. And so now he's looking for opportunities. How can I create more value? What other people don't see yet? Well, if I can get another room, I'm going to rent by the room. That's another $850 a month for me, right?
Yep.
So now you're looking at are there houses out there where I could convert what is an office or what's not technically a bedroom? Can I convert that into an additional rental space, which is what you did, right? So my point on that is real estate, yes, is a number game, but also you look at it through the lens of opportunity and be creative on how you can get more value out of an existing property, right?
100% agree. And I can go into that a little bit more deeply as well too. The house hack, like I said, at that time I made $250,000 a year, and I had 3 roommates.
Yeah.
Tell me about anybody else who's cutting their costs like that.
Yeah, usually the income creep is real on that, right?
You're making $250,000. And I think the stats are pretty crazy. I still think it's like, 3/4 of people making $250,000 are living paycheck to paycheck.
Yeah.
It's nuts.
Yeah, it is crazy.
And so I didn't want to do that. So I was still living with 3 roommates. When I moved out of that house, I rented out all 5 bedrooms.
How long did you live for free?
Almost 2 years.
Yeah, almost 2 years, just stacking more cash.
Before I could buy my second house. Not before I could buy my second house, but before I found the right deal.
You're living below your means,
yeah,
stacking more cash to buy the next real estate investment. So you did that for 2 years while you're making $250,000, right? Again, people normally be like, I'm reining it in. Now let's go. Now let's do the vacation. Let's do this. Let's do that. You said, no, let's get very disciplined. Let's live for free, stack more cash, and buy the next one. So you did that for 2 years before you moved out. Then you moved out, and what happened? You went from living for free till when you moved out. What happened? Tell me about that.
Yeah. So when I left that house, I rented out all 5 bedrooms.
Yep.
And I think that the cool thing about the real estate market is that it evolves based upon needs. So right now we're in a housing crisis, and I provide affordable housing for people who can only rent by the room, which is funny because that's what I did for 10 years of my life. So I didn't think it to be that weird.
Yeah.
I just rented a room. It's way less expensive.
Yep.
I don't think any young adult should be renting their own house and losing 40% of their income, 50% of their income on housing. Rent a room. Also, I've met some really cool roommates who are long-term friends of mine. So I rented out the rooms, and then I gross $4,450 on that house alone. And my mortgage on that, because I have a low interest rate during COVID, is about $2,000. And then I pay for all the utilities. I pay for all the cleaning products, toilet paper, paper towels, and common use items. So, I probably net about $2,000 a month on that property based upon a unique renting style. But if I were to evict those tenants and just get one long-term tenant, I would probably maybe net $800 to $1,000. So, in that asset class, it's crazy. It's going to take a little bit more management, right?
Yeah.
But I only have one of those that I actively manage, and it's really not that much management. But I'm making more money than somebody who's trying to get an Airbnb in Bend.
Yeah.
So Airbnb in Bend right now is super constricted, and they're selling for a lot more, a higher dollar amount. I'm actually making more money on a very simple investment, very simple back of the napkin investment, right?
That's right.
Making more money than an Airbnb. In
Yeah.
Bend.
So you went, just so everybody knows, Donnie went, and what he did was he's making $2,000 a month net, meaning like after everything's paid, his mortgage, true cash flow. $2,000 a month. And guess what he's doing? Nothing. He's taking a nap. He's sleeping. He's doing whatever he wants. And $2,000 every month after his mortgage is being paid down, which means that he's growing more equity in the house. $2,000 is just coming right into his bank account. So what he made on his first commission when he first started, which was $2,000, now he makes that per month by owning real estate. So what you were doing was that was the first step to actualizing what Jim Murray, your mentor, had said, right? So you've got this house hack. $2,000. It's paying you $2,000 a month now. What was the next play?
Yeah, and the next play was finding something that I can add value to.
Yeah.
So fast forward, interest rates are low, house prices jump up 50% in 2 years, right?
Yeah.
And so I need to find something that I can add value to, because my goal is to utilize an owner-occupied loan to over leverage, but also keep my payments low and have a low interest rate. And so I bought a fixer-upper for $340 in Redmond.
Yeah.
I got some crazy stories about that. Crazy.
Yeah, let's go.
The guy who used to rent this property, who completely destroyed this property, just got arrested 2 weeks ago for being one of the highest fentanyl dealers in Central Oregon. We got him out of that, but we put that house in contract in February. Crazy, right? Yeah, we put the house in contract in February.
Donnie Eggers, I buy trap houses.
Yeah, slumlord. No.
Just kidding.
Yeah, this guy, he trashed the house. We got it for $340. All said and done, it could be worth about $450 fixed up. But it took him.
How'd you get the property? Listed, unlisted, off market?
Listed on the MLS.
Listed
Super
on the
low.
MLS.
I got it because I had stronger financing. But I was only doing a 5% down conventional loan. But it wasn't FHA or USDA, which would not go through for the condition of this house. And I also said that I would evict the tenant. I would take on the tenants and evict them myself. After the inspection period, they wouldn't allow my inspector in the house. So after the inspection period, I'm like, no.
Now we know why.
Yeah, exactly. And so I was like, no. You take the tenants. I'll still close, but we'll close in 90 days. They took 4 months to get those tenants out of there, and we took over the property. They had 8 dogs. They had a ramp that went into the house and down inside the interior and just left the window open for dogs to just do the burn marks, fecal matter in the carpets, like caked in. It was disgusting. And me and my girlfriend, we tore it down to the drywall. We refinished everything. I was up till 9 p.m. last night building planter boxes in the back. I mean, we're still working on it, but right now I'd say that the ARV is probably closer to about 500,000.
What's ARV, by the way?
The after repair value. So you buy for 340. We put in about 60 grand into it, and then it's going to be the ARV. It's going to be worth $500,000. We've created 100 grand worth of equity. Yeah. And then, so we'll be able to rent that out, and we won't cash flow a lot on it, but we have a lot of equity in that house. And then we just kind of wait for age, appreciation, and compound interest to do its job. To
do its job there, right? Yeah. So the deal, what Donnie's explaining is what he did was he bought his first house, stayed patient, and then talk about the leverage point. Because how did you how much money did you have to come up with to buy a $340,000 house?
About 18 grand.
18 grand because you used
I used a 5% down conventional loan.
Yeah.
The house, I actually got net 330. The seller paid $10,000 in closing costs. Yeah. So I paid 340 as my mortgage, but I had the seller pay $10,000 in my closing costs. So my down payment was about $18,000.
And right there's another way. There's way number 2, where real estate is a creative game, is how you negotiate your contract to purchase. So what Donnie did is, I'm going to put 18 grand down plus the seller of the house who has all this equity, right? They're going to contribute 10 grand towards closing costs. So then how much did you actually bring in?
I brought in 18,000.
Still 18,000.
But being a real estate agent, and two, this is could be 100% honest, being a real estate agent, half of that 5% was my commission. So I contributed my commission towards it. And so the true amount was about half that, about 9 grand for me to get into that house.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, congratulations. That's the point is that what I was trying to point out and show people is sometimes we think that buying a $340,000 house is so unattainable, right? But that's just because we're not yet equipped with the knowledge we need, the tricks, the tips, the legal approaches to how we could actually creatively close that. So it actually costs you 9 grand to close a $340,000 property that now, after you rehab, is worth 500,000. And that's the power of studying for 3 years, listening to Bigger Pockets, listening to tactics, studying your market, endlessly looking for deals. This isn't like you don't have to go and find off-market deals. This was an MLS deal, and Donnie saw what others didn't see, then used creative approaches to get into the property and now add a ton of value, right? So that's what I love about real estate is it's not difficult. Learn the fundamentals and then go get some street smarts and boom, baby, true. Right? Would you agree?
Yeah,
would you agree?
100% true.
Okay. Yeah. So that's done now. Are you living in that house or what?
No, we still live there, man.
Okay.
It's great. Yeah. It's beautiful. We did exactly how we wanted. And well, not exactly. If we had $1 million to just lose, we would do it exactly how we wanted, but we don't. We do it how the market wants.
Yeah.
We do a little bit to our taste, but mainly how the market would appeal to that house and drive a little bit of an emotional value to the house. So
you're a salesman, right? Yeah. So you're doing it. You're smart.
Yeah. Exactly. People don't buy with logic. Yeah. They buy with emotion and they justify with logic.
Yeah.
And that's how it kind of works. So we did something.
Say that again.
People don't buy with logic. They buy with emotion and justify with logic. Even the most pragmatic person you know does this. And that's why you see
not me, I don't do that.
Yeah, no, we're so emotional. Even investors that you see in a lot of investors, they don't show a lot of emotion because they try to wait to get excited after the deal because they know how much emotion plays into it. Yeah. So we did things we couldn't put in a ton of money into the home, but there were some things we spent a little bit extra money on that I don't think your classic flip works in Central Oregon anymore. Just replace the carpets, paint the walls, and then now we're going to sell this for a little bit more. You have to drive a lot of emotional value into a home. Otherwise, people aren't going to see it. Yeah. They're not going to buy it. Yeah. And when you have to pay $4,000, $5,000, $6,000 a month on a mortgage, someone wants something nice.
Yeah, they want something nice, 100%. So the flips, that flip, you're going to rent this out or you're going to sell it? What's the plan?
We are going to hopefully rent it out. The first house we'll keep probably for a very long time because the mortgage.
Our house hacking house.
The house hack house. Yeah. It's just a cash cow.
Yeah.
And it's appreciated quite a bit. This one we'll try to keep as a rental because I think that a lot of real estate gains a lot of value when it's being held and not sold because the transactional fees are so high.
Yep.
And so if we had to sell that to do the next big vision, we would in a heartbeat. But our main goal is to rent it out.
Yeah. Yeah, to keep it, right? You're in the
Yeah.
asset accumulation game.
Exactly.
And all the wisest, smartest, long-term investors that I've ever talked to, they always say their only regret they have is selling a piece of real estate. So
Yeah, it's the get rich slow scheme.
that's a get rich slow scheme. So you'll keep that. We've touched on that. Any other investment deals you want to touch on before I go to the business side and what you guys are doing today in the business side?
Yeah, we did a true flip last year, which was really cool. We bought a house from a wholesaler. And I also like...
What's a wholesaler?
A wholesaler is a person, and they basically get a long list of properties. They're like, this property has had the same owner for 20 years and it's non-owner occupied, or there's grass and grown out of, every corner of the house and it's like not kept up. They'll basically create this long list. They call these people and they're like, hey, do you want to sell us your home? We can give you the option of basically, you can sell this home on the market for more money, or we can sell it to you we can sell it more quickly for you. But you're gonna have to sell it at a discount. Yeah. And essentially they find those discounted people. Like there's a lot of people who need to sell quickly due to tax constraints, or they need the cash quick. And so these wholesalers will sell these houses. They basically put the house into contract for, I'll give you the true numbers of this other one.
Great.
They put a house into contract for $300,000 on this one that we bought, but they marketed it for $5,000. Sorry. They put it in contract for $300,000 and they marketed it for $305,000.
Okay.
So they would make $5,000 on this deal. We paid $345 for that property.
Wow.
And so they made $45,000, literally just getting it under contract, and 20 days later, assigning it to somebody else and closing with them. They made $45,000.
Boom. So if you want to be a hustler and you want to get into real estate, wholesaling is definitely an option for you. And YouTube University will teach you how.
Oh, yeah. There's a lot of great resources out there.
So you buy it from a wholesaler.
So we bought it for a wholesaler for $345,000. We put about $101,000 into it and sold it later that year. About 8 months total, we closed at $365,000. And so we profited about
$465,000.
Oh, sorry. Let me do those numbers again.
Yeah.
So we bought it for $305,000. Sorry.
$345,000 you bought it for.
We bought it for $345,000.
Yep.
We put $100,000 into it.
Yep.
And we sold it for $565,000.
$565,000,
Yeah.
babe. Boom. That's over $100,000 profit or what?
Yeah. So we split $100,000 in profit.
Are you?
Yeah. So me and my business partner. So I walked away with 50. He walked away with 50. Yeah.
In 8 months?
In 8 months.
How you like me?
Yeah.
Now?
And that was a time when a lot of real estate agents were getting out of the industry because it's tough out there right now for brokers. And so I found a way to be able to make more money outside of brokering. And I'm realizing that I have a little bit more control in that avenue than waiting for clients to come and buy a house, because I don't want to be a forceful broker. I want them to buy it in their own time frame. But for me, I don't get paid in that time frame, right? Yeah. So it was a great way to diversify basically my income.
Yeah, you're a smart realtor because you got the standard realtor who's just thinking about the commission. They're not studying like what you should do, which is you got access to the MLS, you got access to deal flow, you got access to data, you got access to essentially so much information about real estate. If you only sell it, it's kind of silly. What you got to do is wear your investor hat, wear your client hat, take care of them, like you said, and then also wear your investor hat so that when that deal comes through, you're like, no, this one I'm going to take, and this one, oh, this other one, that's a good fit for my client, right? So that's what I like about the investor realtor versus, just somebody who's just out always thinking about the commission. That takes some real skill, and it takes some chance, right? Like you have to have some balls to do that play, because that flip could also go the other direction, right? And I'm sure you had some doubt. Yeah, exactly. But you went for it.
Yeah. It could have broken. It was we sold it when interest rates were at 8%.
Yeah. Yeah.
But we wouldn't have sold it unless we drove that emotional value in the house. It looked pretty sweet.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I remember. It was like, it looked very, very good. So you did the true flip side. How did you buy the flip for those people who are interested on, like, we know the conventional route, but how did you buy the flip? What happened there?
I took a HELOC, home equity line of credit, off on the house that I had house hacked.
How much did you put down on that house?
I did a 5% down conventional loan. That's my style.
Yeah. So what's that? You put $15,000 down or something on?
It was something just over 20, I believe.
So you put $20,000 down. Yeah. So you put $20,000 down, because I want to talk through this. So you put $20,000 down, and then how much of a HELOC did you take out on that same property?
$116,000.
So because of the equity that he built in his house over time, he took $20,000 to buy it, live for free for 2 years. Now it cash flows for him now it cash flows $2,000 a month for him as well. Plus he used the equity in that house that built up over time to tap in $116,000 off that $20,000 investment to tap into that equity, home equity line of credit to buy this flip. Is that correct?
Correct. And cash. I also had cash involved as well. So I've got my war chest.
So the whole thing was a cash. What you did is you essentially purchased that house in cash, no actual loan on the flip.
Correct. So me and my business partner, we were both kind of like at the same thing. He had money tied up elsewhere, but he had, $250,000 in cash, and I had about the same with cash in a HELOC. And we're like, let's just do this together.
Yeah.
And so the HELOC funded part of the purchase and all my construction costs.
I want to hit on this for people who feel like they're stuck in their W-2, feel like they can't get ahead, feel like they can't make it happen. Find a way to get $15,000 to $20,000 stacked up, whatever it takes. And then you can get into this game like Donnie did, right? Because that's
100%.
You just got to find a way, whatever it takes to get that initial stack. While you're stacking, sharpen your skills every single day. Listen to the Momenticize podcast. Listen to Bigger Pockets podcast. Connect with people in your community. Go to the meetups. Get in contact with Donnie Eggers because he'll start to help you think about what you're hunting for, right? And do those things while you're saving up that money. And you can also do this. Like you can turn $20,000 into now multiple rotations of $100,000 of profit, right? I mean, that's essentially what happened. You have the equity in the house, which is already profit if you sold it, which you're not going to sell it. Plus you leverage that without having to do anything else to make $100,000 on that flip. It's amazing. I just want to share with people and hit that home. Like you can do this. You can do this. You just have to figure out how to get that first chunk of money.
There's a couple of things I'd like to add to that too is I had clients recently who said like, oh, we don't want to purchase a house right now. They were pre-approved for a lot more than they were actually going to purchase for. And they said that they, they were only paying $1,500 in rent. Why would they pay $2,500 for a mortgage? And there's a lot of reasons why. But that first house, because I got roommates, the 18 or 20 grand that I put in down in that first house, I made 24 grand that year because I wasn't paying a mortgage or rent.
Yep.
So basically I bought this 5-bedroom house and I just filled it with roommates, which some of them, like I said, are some of my really good friends now. So I think that somebody's vision,
a 1-year payback, just so you guys know.
One year, I basically made all my money back, and now the investment's worth $200,000 more than I paid for it. So when I'm looking at my vision, what is more important? Is my importance living in an empty house by myself? Or is my importance basically setting up a foundation that I can live my life? And by the time I'm 50 or 60, I don't have to look at the prices when I go to the grocery store or the gas station, that I can feel comfortable, not stressed out when I'm driving to work about my, check engine light because I have to go to the mechanics, but I don't have any money for that. It's like, what's more important to you is how to live how other people, for me, it's live how other people won't now, so that in the future I can live how other people can't.
I love it.
Which is not my quote. You'll hear me spit out a lot of quotes. They're none of them.
A lot of real good entrepreneurs have that same quote. And a good friend of mine, what's crazy and cool is a good friend of mine who you know him as well, Jake Hermeling, who was here. He had to do a similar thing. They went from mobile home, et cetera. And he had that same quote, right? It was like exactly that same quote. Live how other people won't today so that you can live how others can't.
And he has a wife and a kid, like a baby.
Yeah,
and he's doing these things.
He had 2 kids born in a mobile home that they bought for $3,500. She actually sold her car, similar to what you had to do to get the money to buy the mobile home. So it just takes what it takes is the point. And
they're smart, they're clever, but it's the action that really like beats cleverness, smartness, brawn, brains. It's action.
Yeah, discipline and consistency within that.
Yeah.
Okay, so the investment side's great. If you guys don't believe you can do it, now you have a picture of somebody who did, no experience, comes out of rehab, makes it happen on the investment side. Let's talk a little bit about the business, because you said you're a broker for this company that was doing all these new home sales. You're like, I'm all in. I want to be the president of this. But today you have your own brokerage. Talk us through that cycle and tell us a little bit about the brokerage.
Yeah, the new home sales company that I was working through made a lot of changes that didn't sit well with a lot of people. For me, it didn't sit well. I ended up leaving, and I have nothing but great things to say about that company. But that, like I was saying, that ceiling of 300,000 dipped down to about 150,000, maybe 120. So it was like, it wasn't in my vision to not grow. Right. especially financially. And so I left that company and I started my own company called, at the time it was called Kith and Kin Real Estate. Now it's Nexus 360. We had to do a name change because we were too similar to another name. And so Nexus 360 Realty, we've got 2 brokers on. And so the goal last year was set up our foundation. The goal this year is to go to 5 different agents. And then in 2 years' time, probably be around 16 to 20 agents. And with that being said, there's going to be a little bit of growth for me within that business because I can grow that brand instead of paying another brokerage to grow their brand for them. And that was a huge mental shift for me because growing my own brand is very important to me. And so why am I paying somebody else? I'd rather be paid to grow that brand. And so we do a lot of marketing. Like the business didn't make money, like it didn't net profit last year. But what it did is it profited off the media that I can now purchase and the swag and all these relationships I can leverage and everything like that. There's a lot of growth within that company already. And one of the big reasons that it didn't see a financial like growth. Let me rephrase that. While it didn't profit a bunch last year, there was a lot of growth because I think differently about a brokerage. A brokerage should be to serve some like the real estate agents that are there through training and through leads. It's like, why am I going to pay 20% of my commission to a brokerage who's not going to provide me leads, but make me work the floor at their brokerage or this or that, or pay desk fees? Like my brokerage, we pay for leads and we give those leads to our agents. So like agents, not only do we get training, but we also get leads that are coming in. So that's kind of like the big shift on that.
I mean, and it's been one of the really, really tough markets over the last couple of years as well. So I commend you for sticking through it, making it happen, and still setting a strong foundation up. So what about, let's say I am a bartender right now and I want to get into real estate and but I don't know exactly what to do or how to do it. What would be my next steps? What would you recommend to somebody that's in that situation?
First off is save up money. That's the first thing you should be doing is lowering your expenses, increasing your income. If you can increase your income without lowering your expenses, that's fine. Like the main focus should be increasing your income, but a lot of people can't do that, especially with the market the way it is. So decreasing your expenses is good, but just start saving up money is step 1. 2, reach out to somebody that you know or somebody that's in that position or have you seen that position and just get lunch with them, talk about it, get an honest answer about what that entails. Then it would be getting your classes, going through your classes and passing your tests and then getting in with a good brokerage that'll train you and, provide value to you so that you can be successful when you go. It's going to be difficult without, having some savings saved up. Get in with a new home builder. I've got contacts with new home builder that probably looking for employees right now too. So there's a lot of different avenues, but the first thing is saving up a little money, talking to a mentor or finding someone that you can talk to within the industry. Feel free to give me a call if you have questions about getting into real estate. It's simple, but it's difficult.
Let's say somebody is like, heck yeah, I want to learn from Donnie. What characteristics, like what kind of cultural fit characteristics, personality traits are you looking for as you grow your brokerage and brokers and agents that work under your group?
Yeah. Consistency, courage, clarity. There's a lot of great characteristics that somebody can have. I don't feel that someone has to fit in a box to be a realtor. Yeah. And I think that real estate for a lot of people is the blue collar's way of becoming financially free. Yeah. I just love it so much that I'm saying like introverted, extroverted, no matter race, religion, whatever you want to call it. I don't care who you are. You have a place in real estate, which is huge. And I think a lot of really good introverted realtors are out there and they do really great in real estate. So the characteristics are going to be about your actions. Are you, being consistent over time and doing your daily KPIs, and then mindset and the way that you filter your thoughts. So like positivity is going to be a huge one, and service, service to others. We don't want realtors who are in it for the buck and willing to sacrifice their moral code in order to make a commission. We don't want desperate realtors. We want people who want to make a difference. And I did this calculation. I do this once in a while in my head about the amount of equity that my clients who have purchased through me have built over time. And it's just about $10 million. Yeah. So like that number excites me more so than like the commission I'm going to be getting at the end of the month for, making a sale. Yeah.
I love it. Thanks for sharing that. Anyone that's listening, if I wanted to get in with Donnie Eggers and I wanted to be an agent with him, this is one tactic I would do. And you have to be willing to put yourself out there. But if I wanted to get in and I'm doing my classes, I'm doing everything, what I would go and do is I would go and prove myself that I'm worth it. I would go and I would find areas, I would go and knock on doors. I'd just keep knocking and knocking and knocking and knocking and knocking and knocking and knocking, get 100 no's for one yes. And then I'd go to somebody like Donnie and I'd say, hey, Donnie, look, I'm trying to figure this all out still. I knocked on 100 doors. This person wants to list their house. I don't even have my license yet, but hey, come help me underwrite this deal. Now you've got something that you can go to Donnie with and say, hey, like I've done all this work. I've tried all these things. I've knocked on 100 doors. I'm willing to knock on 500 more, but hey, I got this one house that they want to list. Boom. That would be your foot in the door. Donnie could partner up with you from there. He can take you through the rest of your listing. And that would be a way that you could show, not just think about, say, yeah, I want to do it. No, now you've put action behind it, like Donnie said. And then boom, all of a sudden you can come to somebody who you want to become your mentor, you want to work with an actionable, hey, boom, I've got this opportunity right here, right? Because that's what I would do if you're listening to this. I would take all my spare time on your way to work. I would find a neighborhood and just knock and over do that and just get yourself familiar with selling yourself. You're going to be terrible initially. I mean, you door knocked a ton, right?
Hundreds.
How many doors?
Hundreds of doors.
How many no's?
Thousands of doors. Thousands of no's.
And then how many yeses?
Several, about 1 per 100.
See, well, we're right on target there, but that's what it takes. And now all of a sudden for a busy entrepreneur, that shows you don't have to prove yourself anymore because you've already done a lot of the legwork, and that shows you're actually interested. So that's just a little tip, trick, something that you would, if you want to get in, go and do something like that and then come and open the door, right? Then go buy the time. So
yeah. And that's like wholesalers. They're not licensed. Yeah. They're not licensed realtors. We're going to see some House and Senate bills pass here in the next year. That's going to change some of that.
Yeah.
But wholesalers in other regions aren't licensed people. They literally just go up to houses and knock and get something under contract, but they haven't gone through any like formal training or licensing through the state. And that's really all you need to find like the first deal. You need to talk to people. Yeah. Just go out and talk to people and get those no's. Those no's really build you up as a person.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Exactly. So Nexus 360, that's it, right? Nexus 360. You've got one agent right now. Last year you built two agents. So you built a really strong foundation last year. Now this year you guys what are some of your goals for this year? We're already in March now, but what are some of your goals and how do you see the market unfolding, et cetera?
Breaking it down to like what our goals are. Our goals is to have 5 total agents by the end of the year.
Okay.
We did what was our gross sheet last year? Our gross commission sheet was about $400,000 last year. And so this year we're looking to double that.
Yep.
And we tend to set our goals a little bit unreachable, which is fine, but we do them KPIs in order to reach those goals. So if we fall short, it just is.
Yeah.
And then what's
a KPI?
Key performance indicators.
Okay.
One way to describe it is like lead measures and lag measures. Mm-hmm. I forget what book it is. Is that 7 Habits or is that Atomic Habits?
It might be. Huh?
Yeah.
You're stumping me on that one, but yeah.
But a lead measure and a lag measure. Lag measure is the result. Yeah. And we're all so fixed on the result.
Yeah.
And it's hard to put your emotion and energy into the result. A, because you don't really have direct control over the result. And B, because it's so far away. So what a lot of entrepreneurs and big-minded people, they break that lag measure down into daily goals. Yep. So if I'm going to take a year of sales, let's call it 30 sales, let's call it 36 sales. Yeah. That's, going to be, what is that, 3 a month?
Yeah.
And then, so 3 a month, how do I get to 3 sales a month? And what that is it's 12 calls to clients a day, knocking 40 to 50 homes a week, and writing 2 letters a day, and reaching out to a certain amount of people. My KPIs are my lead measures are my daily actionable goals.
Yeah, what you need to do to hit the end goal. Yeah. Like we talked about, if you're going to go and door knock, it's going to take 100 no's before you might get 1 yes. So then you got to break that down. How many doors do I need to knock on per day? Okay. And then you can essentially see if I put this much, it's not guaranteed, but as a framework, if I knock on 50 doors a day, right, I'm speeding things up, or 10 doors a day, you can essentially see what progress, what outcome you might get to within that. So you have great, strong KPIs for the company. What else?
And then how I foresee the market going. I think that we are in the slump.
Yeah.
I think.
Why? Why are we in a slump?
Why are we in a slump? Because prices increase Very short answer.
Mm-hmm.
Prices increased 50% in 2 years, and then interest rates doubled.
Yeah.
And so we're seeing a market correction of affordability and what people can do. So we have the monthly cost of living is one of the I always put it on a teeter-totter versus like supply and demand. What can we add to the supply side and the demand side? And that's typically how I describe the market. It's never one thing that changes the market. Yeah. Typically, one thing could be a heavier rock on the teeter-totter, but it's typically a multitude of things. So high prices, high interest rates are going to be huge. And so we saw a slump where it was a great time to acquire deals in the past couple of years. I bought a house, 2 houses in 1 year, 340 and 345, both in the same year. And you can't find a house in Redmond in that same market for under 400,000, even the fixer-uppers. Yeah, exactly. There's some that hover around 380 once in a while, but like there's nothing on the market right now. So I feel like we've hit this slump for a while. And as interest rates start to come down, we're going to grow into a stronger market. And then there's going to be a lot more buyers out there. I think right now is a great time to buy simply because we are in a slump and you got to buy when there's blood on the streets. And I always say this is like we all want to buy a home in a recession. But people don't buy homes in a recession, not because they don't want to, but because they physically can't. And so that's what we're seeing right now is like people want to buy homes, but they can't. And that's why we're seeing this slump. When we can start buying homes again, we're see a flood of buyers. And I think we're going to go on the next run here. I also foresee a big, to touch on momenticize, I see a golden era of building coming up. Yeah. Where we have, what do we have? Excuse me.
Statistics of building. Yeah. Well, how many shortages do we have?
Yeah, the shortage is
4.5 to 6.5 million units short right now.
Nationwide, right?
And we're only building just under 1 million.
Yeah. And then in Oregon, it's a 6-year basically deficit of housing and about 140,000.
Yeah. So the
units.
Numbers we just said were nationwide, and Donnie's saying that in Oregon specifically, we're 6 years short on a simple supply demand game of like, even if we try to build as maxed out as we could, we have a 6-year inventory gap right now.
Yeah. And I think about that too, is like with interest rates, it's becoming harder and harder for builders. Their net sheets, getting smaller and smaller. And so, with that being said, I think that we're in a golden era for builders and developers because cities and states are now coming more open to helping out these developers. And so we're seeing House Bill 1537 and a bunch of new Senate bills and House bills that are coming out that are going to be supporting home builders because a state of emergency was called last year for a housing crisis through Governor Kate Brown, state of emergency for housing. Yeah. And so builders are going to be really where it's at over the course of the next few years. But I think that supply continues to be an issue. We're going to see a little bit more supply on the market as people are now warming up to the fact that interest rates are where they're at. And then we're going to see a big buyer flood into the market as interest rates start to come down. But I also think that we are in kind of a new norm. Yeah. We're kind of in a new norm of high monthly prices. And as you like to say, a renter's nation. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I tend to agree on everything you said there. Also, it is a golden age to be a builder. So if you guys want to learn about the ground up game, just give us a follow, baby. Just give us a follow.
I recommend it. We went to, just to plug you again, we went to Dirk's real estate summit last year, the Momenticize Summit and the ground up game summit. And it was absolutely revolutionary for our mindset and the way that we look at properties. So we went to buy, single family homes and rehab them and then sell them or keep them. And now we are looking at, rehabbing a motel, a 26 unit motel. We're looking at, 2 to 5 acres worth of lands to develop. And so going from, $500,000 deals to $10 to $15 million deals is kind of our mindset shift. And so if you can take away from that real estate summit, if you can go next year, I just recommend it. Dude, we were so fired up after that.
I appreciate you saying that. Really kind words. We'll be doing that sometime in the summer. We'll release out when that's coming, but thank you for the kind words there. Yeah, the what's interesting, the only other component and factor I'd add on to that, yes, we have a simple supply demand shortage, 100%, right? And then on top of that, what's happening is so many people have an interest rate that's 2, 3, 4%. And if you were to look to trade out of that property, now you're at 6, 7, 8%. So you're going to pay 100% more on the cost of that capital, right? A lot of people say, oh, what's the big deal? Interest rates have been up at 18% before, we're going back to historical averages. those things are true, but you have to look at what what the actual cost to buy or build is today, right? So it's 6% on the cost to build today versus also when you're at 3%, it's not just 3%, that's 100% more. So if you're paying $2,000 a month, now you're paying $4,000 a month, right? So it's a big, big difference. And I think that a lot of people who have those 2, 3, 4% mortgages for 30 years, they're just not going to sell, because why would you? You said it even with your own house. Why would you ever sell that house, right? When you have such cheap debt that is essentially negative interest rate. When you look at if you look at what you could borrow, like inflation, if you look at what inflation is, true inflation versus what you're borrowing that money at, you're literally, if you adjusted for inflation, 3% mortgage inflation is at 7% or 5%, you're literally at a negative interest rate, right? Because if you adjusted for inflation, it's an amazing situation. So I think that's holding, because that's such a valuable thing, that low interest rate, I think that's going to actually constrain supply more as well, right? Because there's just not going to be as much retrading. Now, who knows how long that lasts, but right now, there's definitely going to be a window where people just aren't going to be willing to sell those 2, 3, 4% interest rate houses.
It's going to last a long time.
Yeah.
And the people who do have to sell are going to sell. And as more people have to sell throughout the years, that starts to normalize the selling. But like divorcees, people relocating, people who maybe moved here because they can work remotely and now no longer can. Those are some of the reasons that people are going to sell. Yeah. But I just want to change it up a bit. I want to switch to a different side of town. I want to just maybe increase my house a little bit. Isn't going to happen anymore, because if you're selling this house to make the exact same payment, you're getting half the house.
Exactly. You're getting half the house, double the payment, whatever. And many times it's not even, right now in Central Oregon, it's not even feasible anymore because the median home price has skyrocketed so much. So,
exactly.
Yeah, it'll be an interesting market to be in. You know, I think that the one thing I always focus on and study is, like, if you hear the mainstream media, they're just fear mongering everybody, right?
Yeah.
Fear mongering everybody. But they've been doing that. If you actually zoom out, they were doing that in 2018. They were doing it in 2019, right? So the mainstream media's job is to get you to read the article. So fear is one of the best ways to do that, right? Then I try to get all that noise out of there, and I say, hey, what are some of since I'm still, I'm not the most experienced, I've done what I've done, but I try to look at the people who are really doing damage. And like a guy, I look at Warren Buffett. Warren Buffett made almost $1 billion. He put $850 million across 3 national home builders, right? When everyone else is saying, housing market's going to crash, it's over, et cetera, right? That's what you see in the mainstream media. All of a sudden, Warren Buffett, boom, where everyone's zigging this way, he zags. He says, I'm going to put $850 million in to these 3 national home builders. Why? Because exactly the same perspective you have. He sees a supply demand issue, which is pretty simple, and a wave that's going to come of opportunity. So I think that if you're waiting or you're fearful of getting into the market, I think you need to really, really think about that and try to understand if that's because you're being brainwashed by mainstream media, or if you just need to learn a little bit more about the fundamentals of real estate.
Yeah. And some of those fundamentals can be learned while you build the parachute on the way down. But it was Warren Buffett who said, be fearful when people are greedy, and greedy when people are fearful. Or to put it in a more epic term, Rockefeller said, buy when there's blood in the streets. Right now, there's blood in the streets. Interest rates are high. There's no buyers out there. And you're seeing houses down at 10%, 20%. Redmond had a 20% median price decrease in the last 2 years from when interest rates really hit last October. 20%. Bend was at 11%.
Yeah.
That's crazy for median price decrease. And so what I see also in the future is where my future potential is. So if I'm buying at 11% decrease, I know in a few years, it's probably going to pop right back up, right?
Yeah.
I also think I really loved COVID for a couple different reasons, but one,
I really love COVID for a couple different reasons.
You got to frame it in the way that use it to your advantage, right? So COVID, we had a recession in 2020 for a quick quarter. And then we had 50% appreciation, and now we're seeing another correction or flattening, right?
Yeah.
We had an entire market cycle, probably a 10, 12-year market cycle in 2 years.
Yeah.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah,
so we get to learn. I learned about inflation. I kept a lot of my money in a bank account, and now it's not worth, the same amount of money. I learned a lot of really good lessons that have shaped the way that I do business now because of this crazy time. We learned so much in such a short amount. And I also think a lot of Americans feel what inflation is like now. So before, inflation just was a slow creep, maybe 3%, and we don't really feel it. So we continue to take the same actions. But when you really feel that pinch and everybody's hurting for jobs right now or hurting, what their dollars can buy now, they're actually seeing what inflation does. And knowing that real estate is a hedge against inflation, they're like, oh, that makes sense now, where so many people, like inflation was such a slow creep, they didn't feel it. Now they feel it, and it's going to hopefully be a catalyst for action for them.
Why is real estate an inflation hedge?
Because inflation, as population increases exponentially, which would be another topic of discussion if that's actually still the case, and land becomes more scarce, homes appreciate a lot more, and they appreciate in an exponential value. So just like compounding interest. So as inflation compounds, so does real estate. Luckily for us in Pacific Northwest, it appreciates higher than inflation on average.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So rather than if you just had $100,000 cash sitting in the bank earning under 1%, inflation is what they say 3% or 7% or 10%. Well, every single year, what you could buy with that $100,000 just gets eaten away. If you took that same $100,000 and you put it into real estate, when you look at historical timelines and what happens, you're going to be able to protect that $100,000, right, against inflation and grow it because you're paying down your mortgage on it, but you're essentially able to protect that $100,000 rather than getting eaten away with inflation. When you look historically, real estate prices and their appreciation against inflation, it hedges you from losing that money. So it's a beautiful vehicle. And it's what I love about real estate so much is it's, like you said, it's a way for an everyday person to really build wealth as long as they stay patient, they don't give up. They don't sell, and they make smart, intelligent moves by either really understanding it or hiring people who really understand it.
That's
like
huge.
Yourself.
Yeah. I'm so glad I don't do my own taxes anymore. I save a lot of money by not doing my own taxes, but I also spend a lot of money paying for my accountant.
Exactly.
But I make way more by hiring.
It's always worth it. Yeah. Always pay top dollar for the professional and for their expertise every single day. Well, Donnie, it has been a blast doing this. We're definitely going to have you on again soon. Yeah. Before we go, though, I want to understand, what's a book that really influenced you that you could leave with the listeners?
There's several. I'm not going to say
spit them off. Come on.
All right. Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Yeah. The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People are going to be huge.
Yeah.
And there's a book called How to Win Friends and Influence People. And these are all books that you're going to hear on every podcast that people are always going to talk about. They're like staples. But there's going to be one by Dale Carnegie, who wrote How to Win Friends and Influence People, that I also really recommend. And it's more of a mindset thing. And I'm a huge advocate for mental health awareness. And with that being said, the book is called How to Stop Worrying and Start Living. And it's a very old book with very old examples of, stress reducing techniques and anxiety techniques and everything like that. But it's a great book for people who are entrepreneurs who take those risks, because an entrepreneur takes so many more risks and put it out on the line, where like people who are entrepreneurs or maybe don't have that same risk don't really understand. But if you're seeing those anxieties, I literally listen to this book maybe once a year on audio tape when I'm feeling like high stressors or stuff like that, and it calms me down. But also the big takeaway from that book is like, what's the worst that can happen?
Yeah.
Right. So like, out of the 10 billion people that have probably ever lived, maybe 100 get noticed, and then maybe a couple generations are forgotten. Like there's only a few people, like, and we're just on this tiny little world spinning through space. Does it really all matter? Like, I don't know. What's the worst that's going to happen if you take that leap? What's the worst that's going to happen if you knew that you could not fail? What would you try? Like, what's the worst that can happen? You're probably not going to be homeless, living in a gutter, you begging for scraps. You'll probably do fine. Take the risk.
You'll probably learn how to fly, baby.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. What was that book called again?
How to Stop Worrying and Start Living by Dale Carnegie.
How to Stop Worrying and Start Living by Dale Carnegie. We'll link all those books in the show notes. For the listeners who want to get in touch with you, how can we get in touch with Donnie Eggers?
Best way is shoot me a text, 541-610-5063. You can visit us on our website at nexus360realty.com. I'm on all the socials, Donnie Eggers Realtor. That's
Give me the number one more time so they don't have to rewind.
Yeah, 541-610-5063. 5063 Donnie Eggers, Nexus 360 Realty.
I love it. I love it. Well, I have no doubt that things are really going to continue to just stack in a positive way for you. I love being able to be a friend with you, be able to invest in the same markets as you and grow with you. I look forward to having you on another time, sometime in the future here, and we'll see where it all goes.
I look forward to it.
All right.
Yeah.
And with that, we will see you on the next one, baby.